Sorry guys, I had to start over. I didn't realize the previous attempt, the camera was pointed in the portrait mode. And it didn't look good, so now I have it set on landscape. And let me just try to fix this. All right, let's do my best here. Okay, let's try that. That's probably the best I can do for right now. Sorry, everybody. Okay. There we go. Sorry for all the difficulties today, but we got it going. So as I was saying, we're going to be working on the DT-03 Neofighter kit build, and we're going to be working on steps 14 through step 19, and we're basically going to be building the gearbox. We're going to start with the differential, then start on the gearbox. We're going to install the diff, and then the motor and spur gear, and then we're going to put the cover over the gearbox. And everything you need to find the bag that has the gears, and you also need the hardware inside the B parts bag, and everything you need for this step is going to be in this bag. The gear is going to be in this little bag right there. The rods and the plastic bushings are going to be in this bag. And the pinion gear and some of the screws are in this bag as well. And instead of using the plastic bushings I mentioned in yesterday's video, I'm going to be using ball bearings instead. And if you want to do that as well, I'll leave a link to something similar to this in the description. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start on step 14, and for that, actually, let me go over all the tools we need. It's going to be very straightforward today. Going to need a screwdriver, angle cutter to get the parts off. I'm also going to use an electric driver. You might need a tweezers if you have trouble manipulating these gears. You might need a pair of tweezers, but it's not absolutely necessary. And you're going to need a 1.5 millimeter hex driver. And if you don't have one of these, the B parts bag had this inside, and we're going to need this to tighten the grub screw on the pinion gear. And the kit itself came with this little tube of Tamiya grease, and feel free to use this. I'm going to be using Super Lube. I like this synthetic grease. Kind of prefer it because I can put it into a plastic syringe like this, and it's much easier to apply. So this is what I'm going to use. By all means, use the Tamiya grease. All right, so let's start with step 14. Let me get everything out of here. And it's not as hard as it looks. So we're going to start with this BG3. And we're going to start by putting a little bit of grease on the bottom there. We can see that we're going to put a little bit of grease there. You don't need much. You just need a little bit where this gear is going to sit. So the back of this will have a little bit of grease. If you can't reach in there, you can also just put it on the back of this gear right here. All right, and just drop it in there. Make sure your seat's all the way inside the hole like this. Next, we're going to start working on this shaft. We're going to need to put grease on all 3 of these shafts and then put these gears inward like that. So let's start by putting some on these 2. Then I'm going to put the gear onto here and then do the 3rd one. And if you notice, the shaft itself is sticking out a little bit from behind the gear, and that is going to go into these 3 grooves right there. So just going to line them up and drop it in there. So when you're done, it should look like this. And of course, we're going to need plenty of grease between the gears. So you can see I can squeeze quite a bit in there very easily. So that's what I'm going to do. You don't have to be this liberal with the grease. You can just put, you know, a dab or whatever you think is appropriate. Then lastly, we're going to put this gear on top. And there's plenty of grease already on there, but we do need a little bit on the back side of this. All right. And then we're going to put the cover on. There are 3 screw holes on the cover, and there's also 3 stems, and those 3 stems are going to go into the same grooves. And we just need to line them up. Make sure the holes line up like that. And now we need to find the 3 screws that are going to be used to fasten the lid. And I believe it's going to be these silver ones right here. Let me find them. So let's see. I think it's going to be... So it's going to be these 3 right there. And if you're wondering what they look like, if the grooves are a little bit further apart than some of the other screws that are in here, there's another example of a silver screw. And here there's also a stubby one. So this is the one you're looking for. Very straightforward. We're just going to put those through. Let's see if this screwdriver will do it. It's a little bit too big. Let me try the smaller size, and this will do. So all we're going to do is tighten the 3 screws. And it's important that we don't screw one at a time very tight, otherwise the cover won't be even. It'll be leaning on one side and it won't be closed completely. All right. So I'm just going to work the 3 screws a little bit at a time. And then put the final quarter turn. All right. And that's it. You're done building the diff. Wasn't that difficult. So we're done with step 14. Now we're going to start working on step 15. And to do that, we need to find A1. And A1, I'm pretty sure it's going to be this one right here. Yes, it's going to be this one. Okay, let's orient it the same as the diagram here, and so this little flap here is going to be on top, and we need to find this gear, the counter gear, and it's going to be this one right here. And on each side of the counter gear there's going to be a plastic bushing. Again, I'm going to be using ball bearings. So, and all this kit is DT-03 kit is just 14 of these 5x11 by 4 millimeter bearings. So if you wanted to just buy those yourself individually and make your own kit, that will work as well. You don't have to buy a kit that somebody else put together. All right. I'm going to put one on this end and one on the other end, and the other end one needs to go kind of through a little bit and sit inside. Let's see if I can change the zoom a little bit to show you guys a little bit better. So hope you can see that. Yep, it's going to be seated all the way in like that, and we're going to turn this and it's going to go into here like that. More importantly, we need to put the shaft in as well. And where did that bag go? Right here. And the shaft we need is this one right here, the BB8. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be this a thicker one right here. Yep. And to do that, we need to put a little bit of grease here. For metal, sometimes I would use gear oil instead, but silicone grease works just as well. So we're just going to thread that through and make sure it goes all the way through. All right. Now before I gear up the grease itself, I'm just going to take a look at the next step. Make sure I don't need to touch the gear. Get my hands all dirty. So it looks like the next step is just to put on the diff. So we're going to go ahead and put some grease onto this gear, this part of the gear, and this part of the gear. Again, you see how easy it is with a plastic syringe. I can get in there in those tighter spots. and really apply the grease to each tooth. All right, looks good. Always have a towel handy as well. So we're done with step 15 now. Let's move on to step 16, which is to install the differential we just built. We're going to need the other side, which is A3. So let me cut that out for a second here. All right. Okay, let's orient it properly. It's going to be this way. So one bearing is going to go inside here, and the other one is going to go in there. So let me grab those. There, like that. And then the other side, like that. Okay, and the diff itself is going to be with the screws facing up from the main part of the gearbox. And it looks like we're just going to drop that in there, and it's going to stay in place until we close it and put the shaft in. But before we close it, we need to put grease all over the gear, all over the differential here. So let's do that. It should spin. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and close that up. An important thing is to line up the shaft with obviously the hole on the other side, and make sure it closes completely flush like this. Now we need to find 4 screws, and they're going to be the darker BA5s, and we need to put them in 4 places. And I believe this is going to be the BA5s. Yes, I need 4 of these. There we go. And the 4 places is going to be this one right here on top, that one. And next is going to be this one right here. Okay, and then one near the bottom. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be this hole right here. And the last one is gonna be this one right there. Okay. I think this is the proper size. All right. That one is too thick to fit into these holes and this narrow gap. So I have to use the smaller head. And it's a little bit easier to strip the screw with a smaller head, so I'm going really slow. This one I can at least see how far I have to go. And again, really easy to strip the screw. Don't want to force it too much. But it does need to be tight. Yeah, I'm not able to turn this at all. Okay, let's try again. Oh, brother. I think I've already stripped it a little bit. And all right, that's probably the best I can do. Let's give this one another few turns. All right, and when you have all the screws done, just make sure the gearbox body is completely sealed. So there we go. Set that aside. Let's start working on the motor and the spur gear. And this is the spur gear. Same thing. We need 2 bearings, one on each side. Like that. And we need the other shaft right here. And I'll grease this in a minute here. I won't forget. Let me start working on the motor. Going to remove this rubber tubing. Then we're going to line up the, I think they call this a motor plate. Yeah, it's called a motor plate right here. We're going to line up these 2 holes with these 2 right there. And it's pretty straightforward. Just going to push it all the way down. Like that. Okay. And the motor itself is going to line up like that. And Tamiya uses motor plate to set the gear mesh, so you don't have to use the paper method or eyeball it or feel it to set the right gear mesh. So we're using the 17 tooth pinion that came with the kit. It says 17 tooth right there. Then we're going to use the 2 screw holes that has 17 on them. Let's see if you can see that. Here and there. So I'm just going to line that up. It's going to be something like that. Okay. Now let me go ahead and put the spur gear shaft into the spur gear. Okay. All right. Set that down. And let me find the motor screws, which are going to be these stubby silver ones right here. These two right there. So let me do that. I am going to try to line up the label this way so that it's showing. So again, these two holes need to line up with the holes labeled 17. So there's one. Let me just try to get that one on to hold a motor. I don't think I have it. Let's see. I think I missed it. Okay, let's see. I still don't have it. Okay, now I got it. And then 17 down here. Okay. All right. And then we're going to insert the spur gear in there, but before we do, we need to put some grease on this. And I wiped it off previously because I didn't want to handle it. But we do need a little bit of grease on the shaft itself. And we're going to stick it through this hole, and there's the hole in there as well for the end of the shaft. Let me try to line it up. And I think it's seated. Okay, so there we go. It's looking pretty good. All right, we're not going to put any grease on this yet. Next, we're going to put the pinion gear on. For the pinion gear, we're going to need the gear itself and also this tiny grub screw. And I'm going to put that on the end of my 1.5 millimeter hex driver first. So I have that ready. And we're going to put the pinion gear onto the motor. And if you look carefully, the motor shaft has a flat side. One of the sides is flat. I think you can see the reflection there. That side is indeed flat. So I have it facing up, and we're going to line it up with the screw hole like that. Oops, the other direction. Going to line it up with the screw hole, and we're also going to line it up with the spur gear So that's looking pretty good. And now I'm going to set this in there. Okay. And you can see that I have the pinion and the spur gear lined up perfectly. The pinion is not as wide as the spur gear, so I have the tops of the gear itself kind of flush. So I leave a little bit more gap where the pinion gear is next to the gearbox. So just make sure it's free and clear. So that's feeling really good. Okay. We put grease inside already. Now we need to put grease on the outside of the gear, both the pinion and the spur. Real straightforward. I'm just going to go all the way around. Okay. And all right, and it's looking pretty good. Okay, now we need A2, the gearbox cover. All right, looks like we took everything off this tree. And the cover is going to line up like this. Again, the end of the shaft needs to go in there. So just line that up. And it should go in pretty easy. You shouldn't have to force it. And it should line up flush like this. And we need 4 screws again. It's going to be those BA5s again. It's going to be these 3. We only need 3. So right here, and there. Okay, this was the last step of today's stream. All right, this feels really good. It's pretty solid. It's going to be a fun little buggy to drive around. I can't wait to finish this. All right. So we're done with today's stream. As I said, we started at step 14 actually, and we went all the way to step 19. We built the differential and then start working on the gearbox. Installing the counting gear, the diff that we built, and then the motor and the spur gear, and then we put on the gearbox cover. Right, sorry about the camera difficulties in the very beginning. I'm still streaming from a iPhone, and the phone holder is kind of temperamental sometimes. So, but we got it done. Tomorrow's stream, we're going to be working on steps 20 all the way to 24. So we're going to put on the rear lower arms and then the rear upper arms. Going to build the rear axles and the receiver switch, which is going to attach to the back of the gearbox right here. Actually, that's interesting. Then we are going to mount the entire gearbox onto the chassis. So that's going to be a pretty significant step, and we're getting really close to finishing this kit. Actually, this has been going faster than usual. It's a easier kit. After that, it's just the dampers and wheels. That's pretty much it, and we're done. So 2 or 3 more streams and we're done with the kit. And maybe I can live stream a drive around the track. We shall see. All right, so we're done with today's stream. Put together the gearbox of the DT-03 Neo Fighter. If you have any questions, comments, please leave it in the comments below. Thank you for watching this live stream, and maybe even a replay of the live stream and watching me put this together. If you like what you see, please drop a like and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next stream. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow.